Good morning. This is March 2nd, Clackamas County Board of Commissioners with our issues and administrator updates. Gary, you're on.
Thank you, Chair Smith. First, all commissioners are present. Commissioners Schrader and Savis are on Zoom, and Commissioners Fisher, Shull, and Chair Smith are in person. First, we have an update, local access easement, expenditure of road fund for Brewster Place. Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development, will present, and there was a memo in your packet. Go ahead, Dan.
Thank you very much, Administrator Schmidt. Currently, county code and statute limit the ability to spend road fund dollars in local access roads. And basically, we need authorization and authority from the Board of County Commissioners to do so. In your packet was some information about an incident that we had. It was a pedestrian path in a local access road easement where we had a significant limb hanging over the pathway. Essentially, based on the safety issues that we were facing, I initiated our transportation maintenance staff to go out there and take care of that particular limb, not clean up the site, just take care of the safety issue that was there. So essentially, what we're looking for, and I should clarify, we estimated the cost at about $500. It was actually $200 for time and materials. So I'm here before you today to request the board move to authorize the director of DTD, acting in his capacity as the county road official, to expend road funds pursuant to board order 2021-09. That's your emergency declaration, just to make sure we're clear. To undertake emergency vegetation removal to portions of Brewster Place local access easement, a local access road easement with a pedestrian path caused by ice storms, and to direct staff to seek reimbursement to the extent practical from the state and federal government to recover these costs. I will note that you also did receive an email into BCC email with some concerns about the cleaning. I'm not aware of any of our staff that made a commitment to come back there and do that. Right now, our staff are prioritizing work on higher volume roadways. We've got about 2 weeks of work left, and so we wouldn't have been able to get back to this particular site for a number of weeks. Okay. But I'd be glad to answer any questions you have.
Before we continue, do we have county counsel available for this meeting? Am I not aware?
Stephen is online, yes.
Stephen, are you there?
Let me bring him in, I'm sorry.
And Dan, what's the cost again?
$200.
$200, okay.
Stephen, did you hear that?
He is coming in. Here he is.
Okay.
Hello.
Do we hear him?
Yep, we got you, Stephen.
Hi, Stephen. Tootie Smith here. Did you hear Dan's presentation?
I did.
Just a minute. We got to turn up the volume. I can't hear you.
One moment, please.
Stephen, we can barely hear your audio.
Yeah, we're working on it, Paul.
Sounds like he's in a little Zoom box.
Yeah. Stephen, can you speak again to test the volume?
Testing.
Yeah, it's not working. Hang on a minute. Can you turn up the volume on your device?
Not sure. Let's see.
That happened to me once. That's why I'm saying that. I didn't realize that my volume was down, right? And then, oh, it's my fault. But we're working on our end here.
Okay, can you speak again, Stephen, see how the volume is? Can you hear us, Stephen?
While we're doing that, can I ask a question?
Yeah, well, okay. This is my issue on this. You said that there's a couple things I want to talk about here in a minute. You said this is part of our emergency declaration that I signed for the board last Thursday, which we will ratify today. Is that right, Gary? I'm ratifying it. Anyway, whatever. So
They ratified it.
You ratified it last Thursday.
Last Thursday.
You signed it the week before.
Oh, you got man, holy cow,
Time
lost
flies.
time. So Dan, you're saying that what you want to do here is already codified in that last emergency declaration?
That's correct.
Okay, so.
I just need to seek your authorization to spend those dollars.
Yes, I'm sure there's not a problem. I don't want to speak for the board. But my issue is this is ongoing. Are you also asking for authorization to continue to do this in areas where there is very much a clear and present danger with danger trees and limbs? And, you know, this could have come down and hit somebody in the head. And then that would have been, we would be talking about a hugely greater issue.
Yeah, we've had, I'll give you an example. We haven't executed this often, and we don't require it often, but we did have to execute it, if you remember, Gary, back on Palmer Road when we had the forest fire issues to go out there and stabilize the bank. The decision was made then that we'd take these in front of the board as quickly as possible to get authorization. We had talked about the possibility of delegating some of that authority to a certain amount to the road official if and when we need to go forward and do something like this event. But we have not, and we've written up some language regarding that, but we have not brought that in front of the board for consideration.
And I don't support that, Chair Smith. It needs to come before the full board, or me as administrator, or you as chair.
That policy is fine. Any comments from commissioners?
Yeah, I was just curious, so, and it goes along with, so just to make sure I understand this, we did an emergency declaration, which allows us to take care of these situations related to the storm, but you have to come before the full board for even $200 authorization. Can we amend our, just for time and efficiency, because I have a feeling this is going to come up, can we amend our emergency declaration to a certain amount? I think that the county administrator and the chair always have to authorize. I mean, that's just the role, but if this board agrees, could we do that?
Amend it to what?
To just up to a certain dollar limit, up to maybe anything over whatever amount we're comfortable with. The
Well-
whole board has to authorize, not just Chair Smith, you and the county administrator.
Well, it sounds like Dan, you're already able to act, but then you come back later to the board.
Well, we're able to act because Mike Besner, the Assistant Director of Transportation, and I said, if you don't authorize it, we'll just pay it out of our pocket.
Right,
I mean, it was $200, $500, whatever it's going to be.
Right.
That is different than a Palmer Road situation where it is a, 10, 15, I can't remember how much that was. It wasn't a ton, but it was I think about $10,000. We'd have second thoughts about that on how we cover those costs. So we are at the board's direction on how you want to do this. Gary has been very direct in the fact that he feels the board at its entirety should really review these before we spend dollars on this. If there wants to be a discussion around the road official coordinating directly with the chair and Gary for certain dollar amounts, I'm amenable to that. Know the fact that we don't act on these things until we've made sure that most folks are aware about what's going on, so.
So this is already in the emergency declaration, all three of them, that I, the administrator, or the chair has the authority to act between board meetings. So this will be the same for this matter, Dan.
Okay.
In fact, this happened, you and I talked, I said go forward, knowing the board would talk about it later today. So the board still has to ratify it, but I or the chair can make decisions in between your meetings. That's what I recommend we continue doing.
Okay.
Sounds good.
good. Any other comments by commissioners on this?
Yes, Commissioner Savas has his hand
Savas.
raised.
Yeah, well, first of all, I don't want to, I appreciate the administrator and DTD director handling this and following their recommendation. I appreciate also that knowing the risk or the danger that would be to the public, that I appreciate taking the action to remove that hazardous situation. So I appreciate all those things because someone getting hurt or killed is not a good thing. And we can avoid that. That's great. I do understand the sensitivity of this, knowing it's really not on a county property per se, but we took the action. I'm fine with that. I support that. And I would just ask and just note that as due to the ice storm, that a lot of people are out there doing a lot of volunteer work and sometimes out there in the streets and our roads cleaning up. And as long as they can do that without putting themselves in harm, we ought to be grateful for them taking the extra steps. And I think that our DTD staff prioritizing the major thoroughfares where there is a lot of risk right now, frankly, on a lot of roads, on the walking paths or on the shoulder of the road or the sidewalks, people they have to walk out in the traffic to go around the trees or the brush that's laying on the ground. And that puts people in harm's way. So I think those hazards are, in the category of what ought to be prioritized. And I'm sure the discretion of staff to determine what those priorities are and those situations are, I trust them to take those steps. So Dan, thanks for what you all did, and give my congratulations for staff for taking that extra effort there.
Thank you.
Gary, how do we authorize
Yeah,
this?
so we're seeking a motion, please, to approve this action.
I'll entertain a motion for approval at this time.
Move for approval?
Paul
Second.
Savas. Commissioner Savas has moved for approval of this expenditure and action, and Commissioner Fisher has seconded. Do I hear any further discussion? Hearing none. Christina, would you please call the poll?
Yes, Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl,
Aye.
and Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes. Thank you, Dan, and thank your team for doing all this work.
We will. Thank you so much.
All right, next is a COVID-19 emergency declaration zoning and development ordinance waiver request for the business Nori Sushi. Dan will present as well.
You are very familiar with the fact that the emergency declaration allows the board the authority to, on a temporary basis, waive some of our requirements. This is a small business over off 82nd Avenue that is simply looking to establish an outdoor dining area in one of their patios. We've reviewed it in concert with, we being, our planning department has reviewed it in concert with the building official and also public health. They all support this, support the board authorizing this waiver as it's proposed for you today. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. In the attachments, there were documents and also plans that showed you kind of what they were proposing to do.
Any comments from the board on this?
Chair, I have a question.
Commissioner Scholl?
Dan, this is going to require construction of a wooden frame for the plastic siding on it. That's not subject to the code, but do you have some sort of means to check it to make sure it's going to be safe for people to be in there?
We are actually going to require a building permit on this one. to go
Okay.
out. So to review the general plans and then go out and do an inspection on it as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion to move for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Scholl has moved for approval. Commissioner Savas has seconded that. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Christina, would you please call the poll?
Yes. Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl?
Aye.
And Chair Smith?
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Dan.
Thank
Got
you.
one more.
One more,
From
go for it.
Dan, Development Agency Contract Amendment Roadway Design for D Street.
We are here to inform the board that we would like to put on the consent agenda an amendment, a second amendment to a contract we have with Harper, Hoff, Peterson, Regalis for design plans for D Street. D Street is a road up in our North Clackamas revitalization area, kind of north of Oddie, east of Fuller, that is basically there are no general fund dollars associated with this. This is funded through our urban renewal program up in that area. And essentially, it is a road that is going to open up a number of properties for development. One of which is an affordable housing project that is going forward through Anna Geller and other developable lands that are around that we're looking to market and get on the market as quickly as possible. This amendment will add $138,180 for a total contract value of $839,218. Basically, the scope of work needed to be modified to add additional work not anticipated in the original contract. This includes some revised stormwater calcs because Water Environmental Services updated their standards and requirements. Additional stormwater design is needed to expand the area needed to capture and treat runoff. This is required because Wes determined there wasn't sufficient conveyance for that water past the site and down in the system. Also, it deals with the fact that we had contemplated 2 right-of-way files. There are ultimately 4 right-of-way files that need to be dealt with. And the addition of a new water line, which we had thought was going to be constructed, but we need to construct it to ensure we have the project up and moving as quickly as possible. So that is all I've got.
Any comments from commissioners?
Commissioner Savas has his hand
Savas.
raised.
Yeah, Dan, my only question is, these properties that are going to be served by the actions taken on our side, are we, are these taxable lots?
To the best of, well, I know, yes, some of them are. And I believe Anna Geller, her model for affordable housing, which is why urban renewal really appreciates it, is that they keep them on the tax rolls.
Okay.
And so that's as we have talked many years, Paul, or Commissioner Savas, about the importance of ensuring these projects that are supported by urban renewal benefit our overlapping taxing partners.
Yep, that's the purpose. I want to make sure we're living up to the intent of the district.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Any more comments? Okay, hang on one moment. I will entertain a motion to approve and execute Amendment 2 for the contract with Harper, Hoff, Peterson, Rielis,
So
Inc.
Chair, I apologize, Chair. This is simply to have permission to put on your consent agenda for
Oh,
Thursday.
I got confused.
I put it in the wrong spot in the agenda. That's my fault. I'm sorry.
Okay,
Commissioners.
then head nod is all you need, Gary.
Yes,
I think
please.
we probably have it.
Yep, okay. Dan, thank you very much.
Thank you.
With your permission, Chair, I'd like to move forward to the other 2 consent agenda items so we can just dispense of that because there's only 2. First, Health, Housing, and Human Services. I think Rod Cook, Christina, if he's online.
I will bring him in.
Yes, so these are two requests for consent agenda as well. First, Health, Housing, and Human Services, approval of a revenue agreement with Care Oregon for dental health expansion. Health centers, Care Oregon will pay us, Clackamas County, up to $3 per member per month. So Rod, Interim Director of Health, Housing, and Human Services, would you please go ahead with a quick update?
Yes, can you see me?
No, it doesn't look like the video's on.
Sorry. Oh, here we go.
There we
Okay, sorry about that. Hello, Commissioners and Administrator Schmidt. This is a revenue agreement with Care Oregon for dental services. It's actually an incentive program to serve patients with diabetes and children. So how this works is we get $3 per member and additional incentive funds or a bonus if we meet our goals. So this is basically an incentive grant through Care Oregon. It's a revenue grant, and there are no general funds involved with this program.
So seeking approval to put on the consent agenda, Commissioners.
Commissioners, any questions or comments? Hearing none, I believe you have approval,
Okay,
Mr.
we'll
Cook.
put it on consent. Thank you, Rod.
Thank you.
Next request is for the Sheriff's Office, approval of a contract with Global Tellink Corporation for inmate telephone system, video visitation system, and other equipment services. Cost will be $36,580, and will be reimbursed by Global Tellink immediately. And I'm not sure who's presenting. Christina, it could be Jenna or
Jenna Morrison signed the doc.
or maybe Nancy. If you're from the Sheriff's Office online, can you raise your hand so Christina knows to bring you in? Sorry, Chair, I did not coordinate this very well.
Captain Lee Eby is a contact person.
Is not seeing anybody online
Do
right
we
now.
need to contact them, Gary, or
We
can
will
we?
come back to this, so if you're online, I need you to raise your chat hand, otherwise we're going to pull this, and we'll also text someone at the Sheriff's Office, so we'll move on. Next, business meeting agenda review for this Thursday, March 4th, 2021. As soon as I can find it, here it is. You have a very short consent agenda, public communication, and commissioner updates, and wildfire COVID updates. It's a very light agenda at this point.
Great.
That's your meeting for Thursday.
Thank you, Gary.
Next, Commissioner Fisher had asked to discuss board committee and liaison assignments.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. As the commission knows, on Monday, we approved a lot of liaison and appointment assignments, and we all voted in support of those. And then after consideration, I had asked that on Thursday, Commissioner Communication, that my vote be changed to a no, given that the censure that we all had voted for, I hadn't seen that the reasons that we voted for that censure had changed. And so until such time that we see that things have changed, I was concerned about Commissioner Shull being a liaison representing the county to these different advisory groups.
Okay, Commissioner Fisher, I'm going to allow you to change your vote at that time. I need to ask the procedure, and then you may continue. Gary, is there a procedure? Can she just say it, and that's all we need to do?
I believe, based on my prior experience of this happening before, just by stating it, we can correct the record. You don't have to re-vote on this.
Okay,
but
so
we'll
let's
just note
have
it
the
for
record corrected on Commissioner Liaison Assignments. Commissioner Fisher has changed her vote from an A, yes, to a no, correct, Commissioner Fisher?
Yes,
Yes, okay, please continue.
yeah, so I didn't want to discuss that on Thursday. I wanted to allow or offer a time for any discussion. I did email everyone a list of the different organizations that had been concerned and had reached out to us. And so I don't know if we as a board want to talk about this, if there's any other thoughts that people might have, or if we, for the different liaison groups possibly that need attendance, maybe one of us agrees to go with Commissioner Shull. I just want to be sensitive to our community's request. And I know that Chair Smith has done a remarkable job reaching out to the emails that we've received with concerns. But I just wanted to bring it up as something that I thought we might want to discuss. And if nobody wants to discuss it, then we can just move on with our day.
Commissioners, do we have any comments for Commissioner Fisher on this? Commissioner Scholl?
Chair Smith, I'd like to make a comment. Commissioner Fisher, you have maintained since the 11th of January that I have racist tendencies. And I want to ask you, now it's the 2nd of March, what empirical evidence do you have to support that allegation?
Mark, from 2019, 2020, your Facebook blog speaks for itself, which has created great concern from many members of our community. And I don't know that, I don't want to claim like racist tendencies. My concern is for the people of Clackamas County that voted. And we've had this discussion. The way that your campaign was presented filled me with a lot of hope and excitement. And you know this because we talked about it, the vision for making Clackamas County more affordable, creating a community for future generations, quality of life. I just think that presentation is inconsistent with the personal Facebook page and the comments. And I don't want to rehash them because they've been well documented in the press and they've been out there. I think since you've been a commissioner, what would be helpful? I would love to see us all, not just you, Commissioner Shaw, I think it's an opportunity for all of us to recognize and grow and learn from all of this. And so a deep acknowledgement regarding what, since being a commissioner, saying that Muslims don't agree on the Constitution, but in Sharia law, and that they are all for open borders and not closed borders. I mean, those issues are hurtful to the community. And so an acknowledgement of how deeply that hurts, I think would be helpful, because we all have to represent everyone in our community. And it's not against, my concerns are for the people of Clackamas County, not against you.
Yeah, okay, he wants to answer.
Yes.
I believe you guys can continue this dialogue. I think it would be quite healthy.
Commissioner Fisher, the accusation of racism is a very serious one. And when I ask you for empirical evidence to support that accusation, and you refer back to general Facebook comments, I would ask you again to identify specific empirical evidence that would suggest that I'm a racist. And until you do that, I will not be able to take any action to rectify the situation.
So,
And
yeah, please
and
continue.
you reference the media. That is not enough to subordinate the serious accusation of racism. I will ask you a third time to present to me empirical evidence that would substantiate another commissioner to accuse me of being a racist. Period, end of sentence. That's my final word.
So how would you, Commissioner Shull,
Do you want me to define to you what empirical evidence is, Commissioner Fisher?
Well, I welcome the dialogue, and if you, I guess maybe you might want to define what empirical evidence is.
Chair Smith, I have no more comments.
Okay. Do commissioners have any other comments on this?
Commissioner Savas has his hand raised.
Commissioner Savas.
I really appreciated the positive discussion we had during our retreat. We spent 2 days working together, trying to build a team. And I really value teamwork in my life. I think it's, my experiences is that it's very fruitful. And we are here, representing the county, our constituents, a population of 430,000, most of which are not aware of this particular circumstance, it appears. And I just say it appears to me because of all the interactions I've had in the community as a result of the ice storm recently, since the January where this was being released, had a lot of discussions. A lot of people I run into that I either know or meet are not aware of this. So, we have so much work to do. And we are so far behind. We've had 3 crises that have slowed us down. We have a number of highly important things to be working on. I don't want to diminish our goals. I don't want to diminish the impacts. This is not condoning any activity or comments about this. This is really about the business that we ought to be taking at hand. A long time ago, I did just a rough calculation. It has no merit, has no meaning, but I know that an hour of our time in these particular settings has got to be thousands of dollars per hour of cost of public business. And knowing how far behind we are, lots of things that I want to work on and get ourselves educated, get ourselves thinking, putting our thinking caps on, and solving some of the serious problems in the county ought to be at the forefront of really what we ought to be doing. And so I just ask, and I know that since this whole episode with the Commissioner Scholl's Facebook postings, again, those of which I do not condone, and we have spoken out on that, I believe that it appears to me, not I believe, it appears to me that Commissioner Fisher, you are struggling with this to some degree, and I compassionately appeal to you to perhaps work with Commissioner Scholl to sort these things out. I think that I just have concerns. I'm worried about you, Commissioner Fisher, that it seems that Commissioner Scholl is trying to cope with this, and also you're trying to cope with it. I just have concerns that maybe this is a better discussion to where maybe you can help one another. So I just ask maybe that you take that avenue and consider that. And but I just value the time, and I think that the time we have here and the cost to our citizens and the work we have before us, that ought to be at the forefront. And if the public wants to take action, a few months from now, they can. There is that avenue, but I don't know to what end where this is headed. If we continue down this path, I just see a lot of time being spent, and I don't know to what end. Unless Commissioner Fisher, can you help me understand to what end this pursuit is going to take us?
Yeah. May I respond, Madam Chair?
Yeah, absolutely, go ahead.
Thank you. So, Commissioner Savas, my interest is just in when we take a vote or we take a position, and we did take a vote appointing Commissioner Scholl to the various liaison positions. And that's where I had the conflict after reviewing our censure and also looking at the vast number of organizations who had reached out to us asking for Commissioner Scholl to resign. I understand that Commissioner Scholl is not planning to resign. I understand that the community can do what they want. I want to move forward on our business, but when our business includes not turning a blind eye to the community's concern, I just needed to state where our responsibility is. We made that appointment, and so that was my interest. And I'm with you completely. I want us to move forward. I am excited for a retreat, for all of the goals that we have. I'm wanting to dig in and work on those and partner with my fellow commissioners. And I will, Commissioner Scholl, I am happy, and I have reached out to you asking for dialogue. And so if you are extending that to me now, I am more than happy to continue
Commissioner
the dialogue
Fisher,
with you.
I'll have dialogue with you when you present empirical evidence to me to substantiate the allegation of racism. the allegation of xenophobia and the allegation of homophobia. Until such time you do that, Commissioner Fisher, we have nothing to talk about, because I'll have nothing to work from. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, whatever process you'd like, if you'd like to do that in public or do that in private, you can.
I think this is going to be a private conversation. It will not be allowed in public at my meeting.
Okay, thank you, Chair Smith.
Are you satisfied with this?
I just changed my
I-
vote and
yeah.
offered
Okay.
for a dialogue. If there are any other comments, it's fine.
Commissioner Schrader has her.
Commissioner Schrader, you're in the queue.
Actually, I want to thank Commissioner Savas for being so wise in how he is addressing this. This has been very difficult for all of us, for me in particular, because again, I have an interracial family, and I have looked at the list of folks who have felt very concerned about this. And one of the reasons I think our liaison work needs to stay the way it is because from my perspective, as someone who looks at this from a religious sensibility, I believe in redemption. And redemption is the act of saving or being saved from sin, error, or evil. Now, that's the framework within which I operate and was brought up to believe and still believe within my Benedictine tradition that everyone needs to have an opportunity to redeem themselves. And I think that allowing our Commissioner Shull to do some of this liaison work gives him an opportunity to move within these circles with people who have been upset and who have been uncomfortable and are still feeling that way. But I personally think that we need to give space for Commissioner Shull to do his job and to try and succeed and to attempt to really have a chance to prove himself. We can keep revisiting this again and again and again. It's not really going to change anything except, as I said, just dredge up hurt feelings and dredge up the pain everybody's feeling, because I would say that there's a lot of pain out there that needs to be acknowledged. But I would ask people in the service of compassion, kindness, and decency to allow an elected official, and a lot of folks, who I'm not inside the head of my colleague, Commissioner Shull, I don't know, but let's allow people to do their jobs. And should the public deem it necessary, there is a process whereby if they choose to, they will do a recall. That's basically where we are with this. But in the meantime, I agree with Paul. I'm ready to just move on and just do my job to the best of my ability and try not to get distracted because this is going to take its own way and its own process and own pathway of working itself out. It will. And in the meantime, as I said, I think we need to allow people to prove us wrong. If that's even possible, I don't have a clue. But that's where I think that we really should leave this now. And I think we need to move on. And I will tell you something else that I haven't shared before, but that is that back in the day when I was a new commissioner, I was removed from my assignments by Commissioner Stowe and Commissioner Kennemer. They were quite upset with me because they felt I was cooperating way too much with Metro. So be careful what we ask for, because it can work both ways, you know? It can work both ways, and no good came of it. I'm very good friends with Commissioner Kennemer and Commissioner, and Larry and Commissioner Soa, but that was a tough thing to have happen. So I'm always very careful not to do something that I found hurtful, to do it to anyone else. Okay, because in the end, I did prove myself as a good commissioner. I like to think I did anyway. So that's all I have to say on the topic, and thank you for letting me speak.
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to chime in at this point. I agree with Commissioners Schrader and Savas, and you both were quite eloquent in your comments. This has been hard on all of us, and at some point, you need to put this to bed and move forward. And I would recommend to Commissioner Scholl that you very seriously consider sitting down with Commissioner Fisher in a private setting with staff present or any of your personal supports that you would like. One meeting. And I'm asking, I'm not demanding, I'm not ordering. I'm just asking that you go ahead and have that dialogue. I do not see how it serves any public purpose for this dialogue to continue in public anymore. That goes for all commissioners, that goes for our administrator, that goes for county council, and it goes for commission staff. The public will weigh in on this according to law. We are a statutory county. We are governed by Oregon revised statutes. If a recall is successful, according to law, then we will have an election next fall, and the voters will decide. As chair, I have done all that I feel that I can do on this issue. And I'm not going to rehash my 3 extremely direct actions I took in this. So if any commissioners have any other desires to discuss this, I suggest that we do this in private. Commissioner Savas makes the statement that we've had 3 declared emergencies in 11 months. The commission staff, myself, and our commissioners are still dealing with that. We have huge expenditures, and I suggest these commissioners start sharpening their pencils and figure out how we're going to pay for all this stuff that you want to buy. And by the way, commissioners, we're going to be considering some more expenditures and asks from the legislature coming up, and that's where our attention needs to be. With that in mind, this session is adjourned.
So we still have a few more items on the other issues list. Can
What are
we go
they?
forward with that?
This particular item is adjourned.
Got it.
What do you want to do, Gary?
All right, so we're back to the consent agenda request. We do have a representative from the Sheriff's Office here to give a quick update. We have Captain Lee Eby. Thank you, Captain, for being here. So this is a request for the consent agenda from the Sheriff's Office, approval of a contract with Global Tel-Link Corporation for inmate telephone system, video visitation system, and other equipment services. Cost will be $36,580 and will be reimbursed by Global Tech immediately. Captain Eby, can you give any other further update about this?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Smith and Board of Commissioners. I come today as the jail commander of the Clackamas County Jail, asking for you to approve a contract with Global Tel-Link. The Clackamas County Sheriff's Office conducted an RFP for the adult and custody phone and visitation system. We partnered with the Defense Bar here in Clackamas County to include them as a member of our committee to make sure their needs were addressed in the contract as well. The Sheriff's Office RFP Committee selected Global Tel-Link, GTL as it is known, to provide these services. The services provide our inmate phone throughout the facility, including TTY and video relay calls, inmate tablet throughout the facility to allow for communication, entertainment, video visitation, public video visitation, and public kiosks for funds on adults in custody accounts. In addition, GTL, as part of the contract, agreed to purchase a mail scanner for the jail so that we could scan incoming mail for adults in custody to determine if they have contraband or drugs. This is a serious issue that we continue to fight day in and day out in our facility, and this will be a huge effort and weapon for us to combat those contraband coming into our facility. As was stated, there's no cost to the county. The outlay of dollars to purchase the equipment will be immediately reimbursed by GTL, and there will be no cost to the Sheriff's Office or the citizens of Clackamas County. I ask that this gets approved and goes on the consent agenda for this week so that we can go forward with implementation of the contract. Thank you.
Any questions or comments from commissioners? And Gary, what's our action on this?
So if you agree, we'll put it on the consent agenda for this Thursday.
Thank you. Please continue.
Okay, we're good. Thank you,
Thank
Captain, for
you.
being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate that very much. The only item left today is Commissioner Communications, if you'd like to do that today.
Who is in the queue for Christina?
Well, I don't have anybody in the queue.
Who wants to
yet.
go first?
Who wants to go first?
I'll go first, and Commissioner Schrader, I'll probably need your help on this one. Commissioner Schrader mentioned this, gosh, was it Thursday? Now I can't remember. Our days kind of smear together. But I brought up the issue last Tuesday, about wanting us to be ready for the tsunami when the eviction moratorium is lifted and what that will present to us, and just to be ready, and asked our PGA staff to put that in queue to get us information. And then Commissioner Schrader with Commissioner Farr down in Lane County convened a roundtable because of the federal dollars that are coming to us from I don't even know what it's called. It was the COVID relief bill end of December, which will give us in Clackamas County, a direct allocation of $12 million. So Commissioner Schrader and I problem solved with other counties and other staff from other counties. Our staff, Brenda Durbin, was there to provide context and information. We are going to continue this conversation. I think both Commissioner Schrader and I had a whole list of questions regarding how this will roll out, trying to get on top of this so that we can be ahead of this issue, which will be on June 30th. So Commissioner Schrader, I think it would be probably a good idea if on issues, because we're going to be meeting again in 2 weeks with our roundtable, and then if we just keep our board informed, because we are all going to be, I'm sure you're getting these calls now, but we will get more of these. So thank you, Commissioner Schrader, for your leadership on that.
Commissioner Schrader.
Well, thank you for that, Commissioner Fisher. It really was the Association of Oregon Counties, County Solutions folks who contacted me, and I had worked with Commissioner Farr on housing issues. Actually, Paul and I did when we went down to see what he was doing with veterans housing, actually. And so they contacted me. I've known Greg and Andy for a very long time, but I knew that we really needed to have you there because you're knowledgeable. That's kind of in your wheelhouse with that. And my understanding of this is that it will be a $12 million direct allocation. And I've asked Tracy and I've asked Kimberly are going to get together, and we're going to get together with the appropriate staff so we can review this with them, and we can actually come up with getting all of our questions answered as we decide where this money is, basically been directed and how it's going to work for us in the county. The other thing I wanted to talk a little bit about is, if I may, is the cross-laminated timber, one of our favorite subjects. Basically, I've been asked by the Tallwood Institute if the county would support requests for continued funding at the state legislature. They are connected to Oregon State. Their funding is state general funds allocated through the higher education budget, which is not funding the county traditionally, that we chase, actually. Tallwood Design Institute is a partner. When the county was awarded the Wood Innovations Grant in 2019, we partnered with OSU for the Tallwood Design Institute to produce design concepts for a courthouse using CLT. The Tollwood Design Institute has designed several CLT projects in the state, and they are an incredible resource for essentially supporting that industry here in Oregon. So supporting cross-laminated timber and mass timber products has been a priority for us in the part of our legislative principles. And since Tollwood Institute is still finalizing their work on a courthouse design, I think it would behoove us to support their work with our state legislation initiative to advance the courthouse project. So that's what I know today. I don't know if you have any more questions beyond my expertise or PGA's. We can get those answers and come back. But are we okay? I guess my ask is supporting Tollwood Institute's budget request.
Gary?
Do we need more information on that?
It does align with our county's legislative agenda. We have approved this in the past. It does not take money away from us. It's a grant they're applying for. So I would recommend you, as a board, support this letter.
And do we do that now, Gary?
Yes, please.
Any other further discussion on this item?
Commissioner Savas has his
Commissioner Savas?
Oh, Commissioner Savas, you're on mute.
Sorry, my comment's not about this, so.
Oh, okay. Let's go ahead, Paul. We'll continue this. I have no problem with supporting this. As far as I see, yeah, it looks like everybody supports it. So Commissioner Schrader, yeehaw.
All right, thank you.
Are you finished, Commissioner Schrader?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, I just wanted to give my updates, and if you'll indulge me, due to all these emergencies we spoke of earlier, I've put off a lot of things in the last 2 months that I've wanted to bring up, and it's March, and hopefully we're on the road to recovery in a number of ways. So the first thing I wanted to update you all on is, and you know, Chair Smith and Commissioner Scholl, you weren't part of this discussion in December. But I believe it was November, December, staff brought to us the Park Avenue work to the chair and the vice chair of the Park Avenue Advisory Committee. And out of that discussion, you know, we had realized at that time that the business community seemed to feel somewhat disenfranchised. So the board authorized us to sit down and have a meeting or two with the business community. And the first one was last evening. It was originally scheduled for last month, a 3 weeks ago, but the ice storm delayed that. So we had a pretty good meeting. I want to thank Commissioner Schrader for joining in that. She and I both participated in that meeting. We had some members of what's called MABA, the McLaughlin Area Business Alliance. We had property owners as well. That are in this half-mile radius around the Park Avenue intersection in McLaughlin, and also business owners who don't necessarily own the property, but operate a business in the area. So the long and the short of it is, I'm going to be brief on this one, but you know, it's what we had discovered was that we wanted to have them, the board's intent was allow them to talk about or speak to the actual proposal. And that's what they did last evening. In the course of time since November, December, when they made this presentation, they had made some other suggestions, and staff, you know, properly advised us that if we did so and opened the door to other ideas, and some of those have been somewhat aired to some degree, but that should be done in public. So I think there was consensus last night to have the second meeting, have it more public, and maybe invite our colleagues, and Gary, I'd like your advisement on this, but I really think that they would really like the Board of County Commissioners, you know, to hear them in entirety, you know, before we go through a lot of expense and cost and staff time on taking it to the Planning Commission and so on, and just to let them float their ideas. But I thought it was a good discussion. I have a few other things to talk about, but I didn't know if Commissioner Schrader wanted to chime in and speak to how last night went from your perspective.
No, I just wanted to thank you for pulling it together, Commissioner. It was a really good listening session, and I really understand and have a clear idea of why people are concerned about this. It really is about their businesses, their livelihoods, and I think that, yeah, we need to make sure their voices are heard as we move forward with any of this.
Go
Thank
ahead,
you.
Commissioner Savas, go ahead.
Yeah, so, with that, I think obviously these folks employ a number of people, and they spoke to the wages that these people make, and it's above average, frankly. A lot of these employers, the industries that are along Algonquin, most of them that were represented there last evening, pay substantial wages, and we ought to be considered. So with that, they seem to be supportive of some of the changes that give them more flexibility, but had issues with some of the things that be more restrictive. And so that's what we'll hash out and talk about at a different time. So I'll put that one to bed for now. I do want to thank Sandra McLeod and MABA members for putting this together and getting the people in attendance. So I want to shift to another thing that's come up. Years ago, I think Commissioner or Chair Smith, I think you were on the board at the time, but I asked and we put together a resolution for nonpartisan resolution. And I thought this would be the prime time with all of the things that are going out coast to coast in the state of Oregon and so forth, that, the work that we do as a nonpartisan county and our nonpartisan roles, doing nonpartisan work, that we ought to reaffirm that statement and commitment to keeping partisanship outside the doors and just doing the good work on behalf of our citizens. So I would like to bring that forward maybe the week after next for the Thursday business meeting for a reaffirmation of our nonpartisan resolution, and maybe have my colleagues and our staff give them a copy of the current resolution and see if there's any interest in maybe editing or making any additions or changes. I would certainly be open to that. And maybe we can discuss that at issues on Tuesday if there's any stuff. So I wanted to bring that forward.
I think, Paul, I think it's a good idea. We will bring that up. I think we can take it directly to the policy session, Gary, because this is issues, we're discussing it.
Yes, would you just like go right to a policy
Yeah,
session?
two people is all that needed to take it up at policy, Paul. So you're teed up for when we can get that scheduled. Thank you.
Okay,
Next
great,
up,
thank you.
next item, Paul.
Yeah, the next item, I have spoken repeatedly about the need on behalf of our folks out there that are homeless or struggling with either mental health issues or drug and alcohol issues. And and recently, I believe it was last week, this issue came up, and I remember asking the question because I heard from some folks, a Metro counselor, that Metro counselor felt that there was adequate capacity at 2 facilities in Portland. And I asked the question, is there adequate capacity? And so I think we all know, again, this is my perspective, that there is not adequate capacity and that there's a need for more drug and alcohol treatment facilities and mental health dollars and mental health facilities as well. And I know that I appreciate all the advocacy out there. I'm with you. And the need out there is tremendous. But, here we are in a legislative session. I think that if there's funding but I think we need the teamwork on this. And I didn't get a clear answer. Is there or is there not enough capacity? And if there's not, I really want to see our staff at least take some initiative or a proposal, or maybe my colleagues, Commissioner Fisher and Commissioner Schrader. This is more in your wheelhouse, but the need out there, I hear it constantly from people out there that there is a need. So I don't want to let that one go unaddressed, and I do want a clear answer. Is there or is there not? I don't expect one today, but I want to bring that forth. And if that needs to be under issues, Gary, however you want to handle that, please, I want to get that answer.
Paul, I'm not sure what you're asking. Is there adequate capacity for our homeless in the region or specifically Clackamas County, or you're trying to do a count in Portland?
No, the question is there adequate capacity to treat mental health, victims of mental health issues or drug and alcohol treatment? Is there adequate capacity? We have heard, for example, Chair Smith, last year, I believe, we had our public safety officials come to us, and one after another came and said, we need more capacity. When we find these people on the street, we don't want to take them to jail. We want to take them to the proper place to get the treatment they need. And I agree. I agree that the jail is not a mental health or designed to be a mental health treatment facility, and those people maybe not have committed crimes. And it's a terrible experience to be put in jail when you're going through a mental health crisis. So this issue, I'm just trying to get clarity on the issue. Do we need more capacity? Our law enforcement people say yes. Apparently some people in Portland say they have adequate capacity. If it's a Clackamas County only need, then we need to get on, we need to get something forward on this. We can't leave this unaddressed. I do know as far as states rank, Oregon ranks really, really low in its ability to provide mental health and drug and alcohol treatment nationwide. So we're not doing so well in that regard.
Well, I would
Does that help?
agree. Okay, thank you for that, Paul.
Okay. The other issue that I think is imperative we need to work on, and Gary Schmidt and I talked about this, I believe, on yesterday, that a discussion perhaps on a Wednesday when we have, adequate time, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, but when we tee it up, a discussion on transportation funding. We are going through a change here in the coming years. I won't say it's a paradigm change in the sense that as electric cars become more prevalent, there is legislation, federal legislation, that is going to mandate that the cars as of 2027, just ahead, will have reporting capabilities to report the mileage that is being driven, and that will be a substitute for gas tax ultimately. So gas tax revenues will be seriously phased downward, and that revenue stream that we count on is, for our transportation, road maintenance, and so forth, will be impacted. And unless we get in front of this and make sure that we're going to get a similar share for our county, not going through the federal government as much, or not relying upon Metro, for example, or not relying on other agencies to tell us what they'll give us, that we actually maintain our current funding allocations and have more control over the transportation dollars. That's one example of what we need to be discussing. We need to be ahead of this and not behind the curve. There's also other factors of transportation funding that are changing, like tolling and so forth, that need to be discussed. The details are lengthy and not to be discussed today, but I do want to have that transportation funding discussion, an hour and a half, 2 hours. I think staff's probably suggested when I spoke to them yesterday that it would be more of a 2-hour session, but whatever we can do to get that lined up, I think it's important. And that's obviously my wheelhouse. I want to make sure that you're all informed. And I ask each of you, I know we don't do 2-2-1s or 1-1-1s any longer, but I would ask each of you to at least reach out to our transportation staff. We're pretty well versed, and try to get, maybe half an hour here and a half an hour there to get bits and pieces of the complications of all these different factors, road user fee, tolling, and so on, so that we're ready to go with our thinking caps on whenever we have this work session.
Paul, that's probably a good idea. I would agree about the 2 hours. I'm not sure, if we can't fit the 2 hours in one session, would you be willing to do an hour here and then maybe an hour on Monday and maybe the next Tuesday, the following Tuesday, have an hour? Would that work for you?
Well, it's not a matter of what works for me per se, but I tend to notice, and Chair, love to have this, just a brief dialogue. I know that we have a lot on our plate on Tuesdays, and we get distracted with all these things. And I have just found from my 10 years being here that sometimes on Wednesday, when there's only one issue really before us, we have the ability to be more cerebral about our work, and we're less distracted.
So you want a Wednesday? Well, that's good to know. I didn't hear that. I think, Gary, we're going to move forward and try to get our 2-hour transportation funding discussion on a Wednesday, and we'll reach out to the appropriate staff people and even PGA staff to give us a briefing on what's happening in the legislature in concurrent with what our goals need to be going forward. And we do need a discussion on funding and at the state level and any possible federal funds. And Commissioner Savas and I have been lobbying our delegation, and I can give a briefing on that, but.
Yep, we'll make it happen.
Anything else, Paul?
Yeah, just one other thing. It's happening frequently, and this weekend was no exception. Been approached by a number of people I know that happen to be about 10, 15, 20 years or so older than I am, who are pleading for help trying to get their vaccinations, the COVID vaccination. And I'm very concerned because some of these people I know have underlying conditions. I'm very worried about it. I know the state is trying to better streamline the appointment process for the vaccinations. But my heart goes out to the people that are vulnerable or that are in the frontline workers. So I just think that the priority ought to be, our elders first, and somehow I'm just a little bit concerned that maybe people might be jumping in line ahead. So I was just wanted to float the idea of maybe us taking a pledge that that we ourselves don't jump in line and allow our seniors and most vulnerable to get the vaccination ahead of ours. I think all elected officials around the region should make this a priority. But I'd like to initiate just the idea of taking a pledge not to get a vaccination in advance of people that are more vulnerable or older than we are.
Thank you for that. We'll discuss it. I do have a briefing that I can, are you finished, Paul?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Commissioner Scholl, and then I can address this based on a meeting I had yesterday. Commissioner Scholl.
Yeah, Chair Smith, first, I've looked over my 11 committee list assignments, and I'm going to get with Carolyn Hill and get points of contact and send out a letter of introduction to these committees and get things going. I look forward to working with them all. The next thing I have is the Portland Water Bureau Catrell filtration plant. I've got a couple calls from folks that live just inside Clackamas County, but right next to the site where the filtration plant's supposed to go in. And they have some concerns about groundwater in their wells. And I would like to contact the Portland Water Bureau, if that's a good idea, to get a briefing on exactly what the impact is on folks inside Clackamas County over there in Catrell. The one woman who called me yesterday was concerned about the test drilling they're doing affecting their household wells.
Oh, interesting.
So if that's okay.
Is this near Boring?
It's past Boring on the other side of Highway 26, right up to the Clackamas-Multnomah County line, over just south of the town of Orient. Yep. There's an old community called Catrell right there, and that's where these phone calls have been coming from. So if that's...
Actually, may our staff brief you first, because this has been a long-standing issue,
okay.
and our staff at Wes and there's another department. They can brief you on what we know, but then if you don't mind doing that first, Commissioner,
let's
and then
do
we
that.
can reach out to the...
Yeah, I would appreciate that. And then, Sheriff Smith, when I talk to folks about the mental health, drug addiction issue, I find that most of our agencies say we don't have adequate help in dealing with that. And might I suggest that we perhaps look at an action committee to look at that and see what we can come up with for a solution for Clackamas County. And it doesn't have to be a big, expensive project. Maybe we can put together something in an existing facility someplace that we can do, maybe with funding from the state, perhaps. But it looks to me like that's something that should be, like Commissioner Savas said, something that needs to go pretty high on our level of priorities to get that fixed. And I think that's it.
Commissioner Fisher.
Yeah, just a response to Commissioner Scholl and Commissioner Savas. I think that, Commissioner Scholl, you're right. It's the collective wisdom that there aren't adequate resources for substance use disorder treatment and recovery. And I would love it if Clackamas County could take a leadership role. I was having a conversation with Tony from Recovery, 4D Recovery, I believe. He's on the Supportive Housing Local Implementation Plan, giving me an education yesterday specifically related to Clackamas County and just statewide and overall the lack of leadership. But Gary, I think that we might, when we do look at our strategic initiatives, if we really want to raise that, we got to think about what do we focus on. Maybe it's a part of public safety. Maybe we just have that as a subsection because it's definitely related there for sure. But
Well,
I
let's
applaud that
have the discussion,
recommendation.
Gary. Gary will tee it up and see what happens and see where we end up
And I
with it.
believe a policy session was already in queue for that. We had made a decision as a board to put that on the agenda.
I don't
so-
remember what that was, but Gary?
I don't want to, yes, so staff's already there, commissioners. They already know there's an issue and a lack of resources. And it's not in the strategic plan you are going to approve later today. So we either need to change your plan. It's all about focus, commissioners.
Well,
So
I'm
I
not
just need your
willing
help.
to change the strategic plan for anything. However, if the commissioners want to get together with a discussion with staff on mental health issues, we can certainly allow that to happen.
Absolutely.
I don't think we need to take formal action. I'm in agreement with the notion that our mental health issues are not adequately addressed. It's just not Clackamas County. And it's just not people who do not have insurance. It's people who have insurance, that they're still not addressed. Some mental health issues are easily triaged better than others. And I think just giving this some attention and talking about it, and then we can figure out where we want to go from there. We had a remarkable session earlier today that I'm sure we can piggyback on with this issue, and we can bring that to the forefront also when the time is appropriate for that, I think. Anything else, Commissioner Scholl?
No, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Last evening, I had my weekly meeting with the tri-chairs of Multnomah and Washington County, and Leo Horner of the Governor's Office also is with us. And today, the trend is COVID cases are going down. It looks like Multnomah County could be in moderate category within the next computation period, which are usually 2 weeks out, and it's very, very helpful. There were some really positive discussions in our session last night regarding the downward trend, and the question was asked, why? And they're still dealing with the Oregon Health Authority and really haven't got an answer as to why. But in Clackamas County, we're at moderate. I suggest, until we're totally out of this, we still maintain our social distancing and our mask wearing, and just be mindful, if you're sick, stay home, don't go out. Until we get out of this. We had a lot of discussion around schools. And the governor has said, and I'll reiterate, that each school district is responsible for opening up. And some school districts are doing different measures than others. I would encourage the school districts to open. As one of the chairs said last night, it has been long published data from the CDC and maybe even WHO regarding that schools are not the large transmission of this disease, and schools can indeed safely open. I would encourage our school districts to open. Our kids need to be back in school. And this board has just had this huge discussion on mental health. And this is a sector, this is an age group that is hugely adversely affected by not being socialized and for whatever reasons that cause ill mental health. And so I think this is a first step. And our wonderful teachers are usually the first to identify problems with a student. And they get it. And they're able to reach out for services that they may not get at home. And if that's the only reason we get our kids in school, then by golly, let's do it. Let's just continue with that. Last night, the state of Oregon has asked Johnson & Johnson for 30,000 more vaccines, and that is a one-dose vaccine. It is just being rolled out. Hopefully we'll get that. But please remember, we're subject to national distribution. I, and probably all of us, have been bombarded, where's my vax, where's my vax? Again, I will say my 88-year-old father who has congestive heart failure is on a defibrillator, who is sight impaired and hearing impaired, so he is very much needs assistance, has not been able to get a vax despite my efforts and the family efforts to do that. I understand that the governor has made teachers a priority to get them open, to get schools open, and I believe it was said last night, within 2 weeks, all of our teachers will be vaccinated with the second dose. That is very, very encouraging as we go out. The decision had to be made on who was going to be vaccinated, and the decision was made by the governor, and that's what we're dealing with. Once our teachers get vaccinated, then we'll be able to go back and pick up the elderly. I hope that's the way it is. And I get a lot of calls from folks, well, Clackamas County is a public health authority and you do vaccinations, right? Yes, we do. However, we do not have the vax. We have had the vax. We had a couple thousand doses here and there, and it goes. The vaccination is being pooled. That's a decision that is out of our hands. The only thing that I feel that this commission can do is continue in our discussions and be very patient with people who are demanding the vax. And as the longer this goes, the more impatient people are going to get. I agree with Paul Savas, if there's anybody jumping in line. I don't know if there is. I have not seen documentation. I hear stories just like the rest of you do on that. You've all seen the SIT report from Nancy Bush that was released last night on the cost that our recent emergency has caused Clackamas County. She will bring that forth on Thursday at a report in our business meeting. As we're considering what we want to buy and what money we want to spend, I am going to be dogged with this commission. We better be careful, because we have yet to receive our full allocation for the COVID. We have yet received our full allocation for the wildfires. And if you think just because we get a national designation for the damage in Clackamas County that we're going to be fully reimbursed for that, please be mindful of any other legislative asks. And we need to be nimble, and we need to be able to switch on a dime in the event that we find ourselves yet in another financial situation. Now, this staff and Gary and you all have been very good at managing the budget up to this point. But that number even surprised me. And it's countywide, it's just not Clackamas County. So we're going to have a session this afternoon, commissioners. And we better be very mindful of just not the one little need and ask that we want for whatever projects that we deem necessary, and I'm mindful of the fact they are all necessary. But we need to be paying attention to the bottom line and really try to govern ourselves and be disciplined, yet visionary and moving forward. And it's a fine line for us to walk. But I'm going to ask us all to go within ourselves deep and try to figure that out and move forward. Thank you all. This has been a very good session today. I enjoy my commissioners very much. I like your opinions. And with that in mind, this is ended, and any other further discussion we can have this afternoon. Thank you.